Most racing drivers won't claim to be big fans of chicanes, so unfortunately for those that have a great aversion, today we've got an overabundance of them. Time to work on your precision as we get ready for the PCA Sim Racing Series 14 Sport Class. You'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. I am Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Ewan O'Leary. Behind the scenes is our director, Ramiro Cisneros. By the way, we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. Zolder is an interesting one here for the penultimate round. Much like Aragon last week, this is a tricky circuit here, Ewan.
Yeah, it is, but in such a different way, of course. Aragon with a really flowing track, and well, I'll say really flowing. It's quite flowing and definitely technical. This is technical in a really different way. As you say, no racing driver really enjoys chicanes, but they're going to have to get used to bobbling over these curves for an hour tonight.
Certainly, and the championship hangs in the balance after last week. Will Wolf returning to the top step of the podium as Josh Jeppesen fails to finish on the podium for the first time all season long. It took until race number 5 for him to miss, and that brings it down to only 30 points between he and Wolf. Jeremy Main is a ways back, not as consistent with his results. He's probably on more of a rear guard, keeping Lee Binkley behind with only 10 points separating them. And you can see it is still a very tight fight with everybody in the top 10 behind those first two, trying to scramble for that third place in the championship. We are in qualifying, and no surprise after what we witnessed in the practice session. William Wolf is the quickest provisionally in this qualifying session. He was 0.6 of a second faster than anybody else in that practice session.
Yeah, and so I think the surprise on this qualifying session is probably the lack of gap, actually, that he's got, even though that is 4.5 of a second and quite a long way. Jeppesen is probably closer than he could have hoped to have been, really, when he saw those practice results. But it's been about those two all season, hasn't it, really? Easy to forget, actually, that Wolf won for the first time in Aragon last 2 weeks ago. First time since round 2 at Watkins Glen. It's still Jeppesen up until last week's last round. He hadn't finished off of the podium. That came to an end at Aragon. And because of that, by the way, we've got an unbelievable amount of drivers still involved in the championship fight. Obviously, this is mathematically involved and not necessarily realistically involved. But because of this, Jeppesen has brought into play anybody within 550 points of him, which goes all the way down to Alan Hales in 14th. So anybody in the top 14 can mathematically win the title. Of course, it's exceptionally unlikely. And actually, after the amount of people who've turned up today, that goes down to just 500, which only chops off a few more. So that would chop off everybody down to about the top 10. But anyway, it's just brought a lot of people into play. A reminder, really, that one bad round can really send you down the order, because Jeppesen and Wolf's drop, in fact, it's the case for everybody now, their drop weeks aren't very good. Nobody's got a top 10 as a drop week anymore, and that means that bad results are punished now.
In a track like this, that will have a huge impact because it is so easy to have a bad race here. You can see those chicanes that we've been showing at times on the screen. They can cause drivers all kinds of headache, not just because they are difficult, but the curbs here are just absolutely brutal, Ewan.
Yeah, they are. And I must say, a surprisingly little amount of curb action actually in the pro class as far as spins go across those curves. But you really do have to mind out for them, especially at the Klein chicane. Turn 5, which it's called here, just after the back straight. It's actually a decent overtaking chance because the chicane's so tight. You can actually fire down the inside there and get through. But yeah, you're going to have to be really wary of those curbs. And it's one of those circuits where practice will make perfect, because you can sort of learn how the car interacts with them in different scenarios, and that is important before this race.
Looks like qualifying is just about officially over. Everybody has set a time at this stage, so it is done and can't be changed from here, regardless. As we switch over to the warm up session now, like you said, Wolf at a little over 4/10 of a second quicker than Jeppesen. So it was still a relatively healthy margin, but as we've seen, doesn't always necessarily mean something if you can't keep the mistakes away, can't keep out of trouble. And the drivers will definitely be needing to stay out of trouble, not just because of those chicanes, but also lap traffic we've seen can be a bit of an issue of its own. You can disregard that black flag. This is just warm up that we're seeing here. So William Wolf maybe just sped in pit lane for a brief moment.
Probably just on his way out of the pit lane to get back onto the racetrack, which is probably something worth mentioning around that stage in the race when we get about halfway through. Pit exit here is very unusual, and pit entry is quite unusual here as well, but certainly worth practicing. Here is a lap on board then with Will Wolf, who's taken the pole position tonight, the only driver actually to get into the 1-minute 30s in this late afternoon session, 3:30 in the afternoon, so sun in the eyes I'd imagine pretty soon, down towards turn 1. Very obvious that this is a sort of narrow apex there, if you like, very short apex, and then you avoid that gravel on the outside line before opening out turn number 2. Constantly turning and accelerating around here into free as well. Just watching those rear tyres. Shouldn't get silly there, but you just got to watch it as you come forward towards turn 4 now. Just trying to grab the apex. Car pushes on and understeers away from that apex very often, so you've got to be careful of that and not to dip wheels into the gravel on the outside, which of course gets you an off track. This is the Klein chicane I was talking about, where you have to avoid curbs. There's the one on the inside, which he actually avoids probably too much, and then hits the one on the outside, therefore a little bit harder than usual. But you can get away with that. It's not the massive run on the way to this next chicane, which is turn 7. Really, in contrast to the last one, you can really monster these curves. Very flat curves through here, and small anti-cuts on the inside of that last part there that you have to watch out for, but nothing really to worry about. Squeeze on the power around here. It's quite hard to get it done around the right-hander there, the final part of turn 7, and then you get down towards 8. Surprisingly good overtaking chance last week, actually, in the Pro Class. See whether that's the case here tonight as well. More important run out of that hairpin, in fairness. Later apex required before that slightly awkward chicane, which can cause problems only if you're side by side. And then into this very final chicane, the Jackie Xbox, the final couple of corners. Anti-cups a little bit harsher there, but even so, you can avoid them quite easily if you take a late apex on the final corner. And that gives you, of course, a better run towards turn 1 again as well. It's a complicated lap in a track that looks so simple on paper.
And isn't very long either, as we saw. It's a relatively short lap around here, but with our grid set, I suppose we should go through the starting order for today's event with some interesting results throughout, but not that big of a surprise, as we mentioned up on the top spot. And of course, William Wolf, your quickest today with Josh Jeppesen once again starting next to him. Josh looking to bounce back from 2 weeks ago. Casey McDonald will start from 3rd, as Nick Francis will be P4. Andrew Long is 5th, and Andrew Elsom then in P6. From there, Brian Stern starts 7th today. Jeremy Main, we saw he is 3rd in the points, but he's only starting 8th in this race. Sheldon Zaharchuk is going to be in 9th, with the top 10 rounded out by John Calvin. Then it's Randy Lervold starting in 11th. Lee Binkley will begin in P12. They've got Ankerberg's on in the 13th spot, flanked by Kevin Ham. From there, 8th row sees Kent Locklear, flanked by Jeff Williams. Jeff Gardner is starting 17th. Patrizio Torregiani will be in the 18th spot. After that, it's Mike Saxon, P19, Tim Thornton in 20th, and Daniel Corbett at 21st. Peter Yerxa will start in 22nd, with 23rd going to Bruce Robinson, and Alan Hales in the 24th position. The quarter century mark and last spot on the field will go to Ron Evans to round things out, as we heard Ewan mention. A little bit of a smaller field compared to what we've seen at times earlier on in the season, as we take a look at Andrew Elsom heading down into that Turleman chicane. The first corner, you talked about how narrow it was down to that apex. I'm hoping we can keep it clean. Sometimes it can get a bit messy into there, Ewan.
Yeah, it certainly can. I mean, it's very open on the way in there, which doesn't help actually, because it then narrows on the exit as you then come towards turn 2. Very often you'll find drivers on the outside in the gravel there, and with the new iRacing system of gravel being brought onto the circuit, really creates a bit of a minefield as you come back onto the road again for the pit exit, or indeed if you're running side by side with somebody. You can see a little bit of it there actually as we go over it there. It's a real problem. So that is a legacy of people running wide and getting into trouble. And you just wonder whether that is going to happen on lap number 1 this time round. Hope not, of course, but you do never know, given the, as I say, very wide entry. Even pit straight's not very wide, but the actual corner entry for turn 1 is much wider than the rest of that circuit.
Looks like they're getting ready to grid up now. Rolling start in this series, so they'll do about half a lap, and then they'll be on their way. Another minefield to be concerned about is if you do manage to mess up those chicanes, you can get an automatic slowdown penalty that is handled by the sim. They have cut course markers that will detect if you have not taken the racetrack officially, and it will make you give that time back. Now, we have seen, at least in the club class, that did make a bit of a difference for a number of cars as they fall away from battles, just pushing that little bit too hard. And on top of that, Ewan, there is always the threat of the disqualification at 25 incident points.
Yeah, it feels like quite a lot, and at certain tracks it is, but yeah, if you get involved in a couple of incidents on lap 1, for example, you could be only 17 away with still basically an hour to go. So you've got to be very careful, very watchful, especially in these opening moments for that. Because, yeah, if you rack up the 4Xs too quickly, then you will be over the limit very quickly as well. And no second chances in this series. It's no longer a drive-through. It's a straight disqualification.
All right. William Wolf will have control of the field shortly. You'll see it's a bit of an early pit entry before they even get to the Jackie Ick chicane, which is its own storyline we'll talk about once we get to the pit stops. Got to watch out if anybody in front of you is not pitting and you are, because that can cause problems. Now, William Wolf waits for the flag stand to give the command. And there it is. Green flag is out. Josh Jeppesen going to try and chase him down into the first corner. Somebody in the background had a little bit of an issue as they popped out quite early, but swinging into that left-hander at Erst. First few rows are nice and clean through there. Everybody else tiptoeing in behind them. So this is a good sign that we're seeing, although there is still plenty of 2 and 3 wide coming down into Sterenbach.
Yeah, very clean start all the way through and very positive for the field. But Wolf has been able to hold on to his lead ahead of Jeppesen, which I think Jeppesen would have been hoping to overhaul here because, as we've seen so far, Wolf's pace is very, very good. And if you let him get out front, he might well run away with this race.
Down into the Kleine chicane. Jeppesen still holds second. Casey McDonald is still in third, but you've got Andrew Long jumping up one position into fourth since the start of this one. Down into the second chicane. You can see them really having to take quite a bit of that curve as they bound around there. Checking in with Jeff Williams, who was a little bit slow checking up. Thankfully stayed out of trouble. Almost got ran into in the back.
There were some people down the back, I think, trying to guess when the leader was going to go, and that's never a good idea because it causes a massive concertina effect further down the field, as we just saw there. Randy Lervo looks like he started from pit lane for whatever reason, so that's going to show up as an extra pit stop for him, but we've got to remember he started from pit lane, takes his very unusual pit exit, and was actually released quite late. He's quite a long way off the back of the field.
No full course yellows in this series, so he's going to have a hard time catching that back up. Meanwhile, watching Andrew Long, he's still got Casey McDonald in front of him, battle potentially for a podium position between them. We jump a little bit farther back. This is Stern ahead of Andrew Elsom. They've swapped places since the start of the race. 2 very different lines coming down into turn 2.
And again, that's what turn 2 offers you a little bit. Just that chance to dive down the inside, although, of course, the other driver has the right to get a good exit through there and beat you on the way to 4, since there's no other real braking zone until you get all the way down here to the Kleine chicane. But look at the gaps already. Only a lap completed in this race, and these guys battling for 6th. Battling for 6th for nearly 5 seconds away. Brian Stern's certainly going to be 5 seconds away now. That's a massive jump over the curbs.
That is exactly what I was talking about earlier on, illustrating how you got to watch out for a few of these curbs, and that's a spin in front of him. Nick Francis is off. looks like he did not quite hit the wall, and he somehow sneaks back in without causing too many issues despite a lot of cars around.
Yeah, that's quite impressive that he didn't touch the wall there, actually, because it's not very far away at that chicane, but he's gotten away with it by the looks of it. Ken Loughlin looks down the inside there, but actually they all stack up against one another down into the hairpin there. Now let's see what actually happened. He was quite late on the brakes, but he's just trying to pull that back in time, and he goes for a spin. He lights the rears up very well to avoid the wall.
Back he returns. Meanwhile, it looks like we got a little bit of a fight here between Bergson and Main, and coming up the inside of turn 1, Jeremy Main will move himself into 7th. That is a battle that's been between Elsom and Stern just in front of him. Stern had to have a go down into turn 8, but didn't quite make it stick. This is all for somewhere around 5th place. But that's wide coming out to turn 3, and Elsom is going to give it up as Stern finally gets it.
Yeah, nicely done. But look at the gap again that's been created out front here because of this battle here. It's just remarkable how you lose time around here when you're actually fighting. Stern, again, will consolidate that place into the chicane, and everybody will follow on. This group, by the way, stretches all the way down, you could argue, to 17th, 18th, maybe even further than that, as the gaps are really not very large, as you can see.
Can be a little bit tough to overtake sometimes. And yeah, there is the train on our screen going back a long, long ways. Worth noting that Bergson and Hamann are both up 5 positions since the start. We're only on lap 3, so they've had a phenomenal run here at the early stages of this race. A look to the inside to try to return the favor from Elsom, but nothing working this time down into the Boulderberg hairpin. In the meantime, yeah, look at the gap ahead of them. Andrew Long, 7 seconds ahead of Stern. Yeah,
it's remarkable after just 5 minutes, but again, this is what happens when you make overtakes and the like. Seeing Nick Francis drop from this group and drop all the way down, Stern moving up, as you saw from that movers and shakers graphic there, and there's some more in the background as well. That's a look from Kevin Hamann down the inside and towards turn 1 on Ankerberg Son. It's not the longest braking zone in the world, though, at turn 1, so that can't work his way through there.
And downhill on top of it, so trying to get the car woed up can sometimes be a little bit difficult. As we continue to follow Hamann around the triple right-handers of Sterrenbach, Canal, and Bianchi. Then you get this run down towards the Kleine chicane, but you need a little bit better of an exit than that if you're going to try and make a move. So he'll sit patient, at least for the time being, trying to nail his apexes through that left-right and then rise over the crest of Butte.
It's one of the only bits of elevation on this circuit. I've done well to find it in this area, actually. It's not a very hilly part of the world, but it doesn't, thankfully, affect too much in this racetrack. It's more the turn, actually, that you're coming downhill through turn 6. It's the actual turn when you come off that bit of elevation change there that is really the problem, as Kevin Hamann dives down the inside of the hairpin. That's the kind of decisiveness you require to make a move at this venue.
Great dive, and it's not done yet. Unfortunately, he's going to be on the outside, as Bergson is actually going to give it up. And they got a car spinning in front of them, and trying to make out who that is. That's Jeremy Main, who's going to be able to get back onto the track, but he's going to have to give up a little bit of time due to cutting the circuit, and that sends him all the way down to at least 14th, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether the slowdown will actually require him to slow anymore once he's on the tarmac, because it was such a slow recovery back onto the racetrack, but he certainly went across the chicane there, and we'll see how in a moment. But I'm pretty sure that was alone. He may have just clipped the grass from, well, I'm just guessing, before I've seen, but it's very easy to just clip the grass as you're trying to open up that final chicane coming onto the front straight, but that's so costly. As I mentioned before, the group's running so close together, it can cost you so many places, and it's nearly 10 places he's lost in this.
Yeah, he had another decent start in comparison, so here we go. He almost swerved into the grass. I'm not sure if he locked a brake or what.
Let's see if on board has any other answers, but I can't really see why he's had to sort of swerve into the grass, as you say, like that. That's very, very strange, I must say. One of the strangest spins I've seen. Oh, Elsom goes down the inside of Stern. There's the indecisiveness at this. Oh, and Heman hits him as well. That's the indecisiveness that causes trouble around here.
That was not quite a safe rejoin, unfortunately. Some secondary contact, and look at how this has backed them up behind. Everybody with a chain reaction. And into pit lane. The 22 misses his brake marker in the melee. And, well, surely he's not trying to pit this early as he backs it up. Yes, he is.
He is. You wouldn't believe, by the way, I know you weren't there, Joe, there was the most unbelievable pit entry last week in the Pro Class that you won't have seen, but it was, if you think that's bad, it's unbelievable. Main did indeed lock the rears on the way in, so that's why he just swerved into the grass before going for his proper spin. So there we go, that onboard giving us the full answer there. But yeah, down in towards turn 8, we've seen the two types of move round here. That on the first side, Brian Stern's move, I think it was a lap ago, working because he was, very clear about what he was going to do, and he did it very decisively down the inside. And then the lack of conviction in that second move we just saw there on the most recent lap, which has caused that incident, that latest incident down at turn 8.
Elsom very late. Oh, come on. I think is going to get a slowdown for that one. Actually, let me check real quick to see if that's the case. Yes, he absolutely has a furled black flag hanging over his head right now. Here's Elsom's move. Very late, and he definitely was not alongside before they got to that apex. So, and as he returns, he also runs into a car. So both cars coming back to the racing line a little bit clumsy.
Yeah, so he just sort of spun up the rears, and then he's trying to get to pit lane here as well, which is awkward. And then he realises he has to brake, probably locks it up, but he's on the grass at this point. So he spins around at the gravel, and thankfully nobody else was trying to come into pit lane, because this was not an example pit entry by any means. And so, yeah, that was, not great for anybody really down at turn 8, but this is what happens in big groups on tight circuits.
Kalbach is currently sitting in 9th. He's chasing Zaharich up just in front of him. It's another one of those cars that's in quite a big train. We can't quite see it from this angle. There we go as we jump to the TV cameras now. There is just a ton of cars behind him. Nick Francis, Kent Locklear, Luke Binkley, Jeremy Main, who we know has had trouble. Jeff Gardner's in that group, Daniel Corbett. So tons of drivers hungry to try and make some passes, some of them looking like they might be mildly held up at this stage.
And these are the groups you've got to clear at this stage in the race. We're nowhere near the halfway stage where you'd like to sort of think that a pit stop might get you out of trouble. You've got to try and make these moves on the circuits. Brian Stern gets a black flag penalty for something that the stewards have judged him at fault for in the first 10 minutes of this race. So he will certainly drop from 6th. He'll be at least 24th. Yeah, probably, actually, because the field is so close.
Yeah, that was for lap 5. Don't know what specific incident. Also, Elsom was given a penalty for his. And in the background, Peter Yerxa is off along with another car. Didn't quite make out who it was, but that was down at the hairpin.
Yerxa's car looks horrific as well. That's a big crowd. And I don't think I've ever seen, by the way, two cars going quite so quickly at that point in the circuit. You're supposed to be slowing down for a very slow speed, tight hairpin. And those two were still going at almost terminal velocity there. They must have made contact very early in the piece as they came around the kink over the top of the hill there and just continued to spin. And how they didn't wipe anybody else out, skittle them over, is a mystery.
To stay out of trouble in this race clearly is a lot easier said than done. As here we've got the replay. Oh, holy cow. I think maybe he took an avoiding action or something, and that sent him sliding into the inside wall. Could not slow it down at all. Oh, goodness.
Jeez. That's a massive
crash. And that was Bruce Robinson that he wound up making contact with. Yeah,
and Robinson got a meatball flag, by the way. So, unfortunate and innocent bystander in that one. So I thought Robinson was actually near Yerxa at the time, and they made contact with each other and just slid all the way down to the hairpin. But actually, Robinson was collected in the way that I was initially fearing. It did actually happen for Robinson, unfortunately. And Yerxa's car looks very badly damaged as well. It would be somewhat of a surprise to see either of them back out on the circuit tonight.
Well, Shockingly, Bruce drove it back into pit lane, and he only just got there now. So, yeah, he was limping as we got another car in. I think that's Stern serving his penalty. Haman is going to carry on. Yeah, there is Stern now on his way to his stall. Bruce Robinson showing us yet another view. I mean, is going to be just completely clueless until that car smacks into the side of him.
Goodness me. It's a real shame for Robinson because had completely nothing to do with that. But unfortunately, as you say, Yuxa was out of control, completely out of control there because of contact and, as you say, a bit of avoiding action that had already happened there. That unfortunately got him straight into Robinson coming round the hairpin. So yeah, that is a real shame because an innocent party has been taken out in that one. But that's what happens at these types of corners, unfortunately. And yeah, unfortunately, it's happened to Robinson.
Eckeberg Zone off at the Kleine chicane. I think that was a solo incident, and he's also having to wait a long time backing up, trying to find an opening in the traffic and get fed back in. Here's the replay. A little bit offline initially. I wonder if there was an incident earlier than that. But then completely on his own, and it looks like the curb bites another one.
I said it sort of pre-race. I think it's the sharpest of the curves anywhere in this circuit, even though there are plenty to choose from. It's certainly the most deadly, in my opinion, and I'd be surprised if that's not the last one we see through there over the course of this race. And the really damaging thing, of course, for Bergsong is just the amount of positions you lose. This group is still really close. These guys, for example, battling over 11th place at the moment, are less than 10 seconds off of 5th. That's just how close it is as Daniel Corbett takes a different line here, trying to get past Jeffrey Gardner. He can't quite, looking down the inside there.
Just behind them, we didn't see it on screen, but Jeremy Main had another problem along with Jeff Williams. Now, I do not know if these two are related, but it was both in the same corner around the same time. Williams takes a longer time to get back out as he was way into the gravel.
Yeah, and took quite a long time to get back on, so clearly something pretty major had gone on there. And Jeff Williams had unfortunately dropped to 20th, again, losing so many places in such a short amount of time. It does look like they're separate. So Main just breaks a little bit too late. Oh, and he spins to get back on. Oh, Williams does it to an even bigger degree.
And is probably grateful for that huge gravel trap they've put on the outside. It's part of why they have such a weird pit exit that takes you that long way around and in an especially narrow set of Armco on either side. So it is there for safety reasons, at least in the real world, and here in the sim, it does at least save your bacon, allowing you to carry on in the race. Meanwhile, battle for 6th position. Zaharachuk being chased by Callback. This is 3 positions up for each of them, but behind Kevin Haman, who is just up the road, he's up 9 spots. It's been a great race for the 247, even though he's had a few wild moments out there, and boy, you can see that gravel that you mentioned just building up just off the racing line.
Yeah, it's one of those weird points in the sort of iRacing circuit, if you like, where it really just collects almost more than anywhere else. Somewhere that's so close to the racing line, but I guess it's because everybody's so viciously going from the right-hand side of the road on the exit of 1 to the left to open out the entry of 2, and there's not very much space in between them. So it does mean that there's quite a lot of gravel there, which is abnormal, certainly. But nevertheless, something to worry about when, especially, they get to the pit stops, which can't be too far away now. The exit road is right around the outside of the gravel trap, which is separated by an Armco barrier, but that makes it very, very narrow. And then when you actually get on the straight and narrow on the way towards turn 2 itself, which you arrive pretty much on the apex of, you have to go through that gravel as well.
Watching Kent Locklear being chased by Binkley, Gardner, Corbett. This is for 9th position, and out of Boulderberg, accelerates away nice and clean, getting to about a third of the way into this race. So we're now certainly into the meat of things, and hopefully it'll calm down a little bit. Has Brian Stern had more issues? Well, he does, but he manages to avoid others around him. Doesn't save him the embarrassment of winding up out in the kitty litter.
No, another driver to end up in the gravel here. Very, very punishing circuit. None of the modern day tarmac lines so many of the big circuits in the modern world. It's gravel and grass lining this circuit, and that's what has really punished so many of these drivers tonight. And it's started to thin out this middle group as well. These guys now 10 seconds off of 5th place, whereas before we were seeing guys who were about 20th, 10 seconds off of 5th place. This group is very much thinned out. Kent Locklear and Lee Binkley, they won't particularly mind. They've both been able to advance their places into the top 10 for the first time tonight because of all the trouble we've seen so far.
Locklear looked like he had a little bit of trouble that actually backed up Binkley, but Gardner behind also has no place to take the speed. All four of them just kind of stay put where they were. It's another good illustration of how tough sometimes it can be to try to get those passes done at this track. Now we ride on board with Kent, looking back at the train. He's got himself some ground over Binkley. Gardner and Corbett, though, very close under braking down into Boulder Berg, but no moves this time.
Not this time round. It's a bit of a patient game now because we are getting towards the middle third of the race in a moment, and you might just wonder, well, is it worth coming into the pit lane now and trying to do it that way rather than actually having to do it on the circuit, because this is going to be a difficult overtake now. As the groups thin out, overtakes generally get more difficult unless you're going to end up waiting for the driver in front of you to make a mistake, for which you could be waiting quite a long time.
Well, while we wait, let's give a quick mention to our sponsor, because we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. And looks like we had a mistake, I believe, coming from Kent Locklear. He's going to have to give up the time. Binkley has an opportunity if he can try and pounce on it, but no, he cannot, even though he sticks his nose in, makes a little bit of contact, and that'll compromise the O2.
Yeah, and we'll see what Locklear decides to do on the exit here. Looks like he's able to go again, but Binkley now under a lot of pressure here from Jeffrey Gardner for this last spot inside the top 10. Here goes Gardner. He has a look down the inside and he's going to go through. Again, decisive on the inside. Exactly what you need. Oh, he's quite slow though. And he stops right in front of Corbett and Mike Sachs, who then hit each other through the hairpin as well. And Gardner doesn't even get the place.
And that was actually Elsom, who was a lap down, that got into the back of him. I was kind of keeping an eye on there. He's had his black flag, as now Ron Evans also gets one of his own. They have been handed out a bit like candy, unfortunately, today. Just drivers being a little bit sloppy, it seems, in today's race. There is Evans. He actually runs last on the field, so this black flag is more of insult to injury at this stage as he goes off course, and he makes contact.
Oh dear, well, it's been the action area of the day. I must say, when we approach these 2 weeks, I didn't think the hairpin would provide so much action as much as it has, but there's another example of it. So much happening down there. I guess when it's so difficult to overtake everywhere else on this racetrack, it's got to gravitate towards the one place that you can make moves, and there is so much desperation with only one chance on a lap. That does mean the likelihood of accidents does increase somewhat.
And apologies, that was a replay, so that was not live. So that's what caused Ron Evans to get his penalty. And I think I can agree with that one. That was a bit of a poor rejoin, unfortunately. He's still in pit lane right now. I think he might actually be repairing damage on top of serving that penalty. This actually is Mike Sachs now that we're seeing. He's currently just ahead of Jeremy Main, who's not been having the best of days out here. Battle for what looks like 13th place.
Yeah, he's only very recently had that bit of contact down at the hairpin a lap ago, and that's what's just exposing that front left tyre, as you can see when we have the front-on shot here. Just can see a little bit more of that tyre than you would normally, suggesting there has been some front-end contact for that car. But Jeremy Main in behind is down 6 places, don't forget, on the start of this race. So it is in theory quicker than these guys and will be eager to make up the places.
And I think he was up a couple when he had that incident that sent him down this far. Hasn't really seemed to have been able to make up for it at this stage, but he's still got a lot of racing left to go. As we check back in with his onboard camera, still giving chase with Mike Sachs. Of course, we also know that he had another off after his initial problem too, so that probably also didn't help him. So if he can get by, they're not too far behind Daniel Corbett in that big group. So I'm sure Jeremy would love to try and get this pass done, see if he can catch up, as we might have another replay for Daniel Corbett here. Excuse me, this is live here with Corbett, who's got a little bit of damage on the rear end of the car. He's still chasing on Jeff Gardner. He's the tail of this quartet.
Yeah, and again, another group just sort of growing in numbers, if you like. Oh, and a spin for Lee Binkley. And there may have been contact with Jeffrey Gardner. He was certainly close. And you don't often spin there on your own at the hairpin unless he's gone in too deep and tried to turn in at too high of a speed. But he's had to wait a long time there for a gap in the traffic. And he drops to 18th as he turns back round.
I am glad he waited a long time for the gap in traffic, though, because we've seen a lot of poor rejoins in that Boulderberg hairpin. And he decides now is as good a time as any to come in. I went back and checked, and sadly, this was not involving any other driver. It was his own error that put him at the side of the track. Checking back in with the 678 now, I believe. Here's the replay, though, on Binkley. And yeah, you called it earlier. You said you can go in too hot, and I think that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, it's the only way, really, you can spin if you go in a bit too hot, I suppose. But I would have thought there'd be a bit of a bump from behind, actually, because otherwise it's pretty difficult to spin. Gardner gets that all wrong through the climb chicane. And Daniel Corbett says thanks very much. Didn't even have to do the climb chicane particularly well to get a fantastic run out of the corner. And Jeffrey Gardner, as soon as he's into the top 10, because of that spin, he's back out of it again after that mistake.
Put another mark on the hull for Daniel Corbett, because that's his latest victim. He's passed 11 cars today. It's been a great race for the 556. So check back in with Sachs. This is Maine still behind him, and now they're being joined by Alan Hales, who's also up 10, I'm just noticing. So yeah, Alan Hales, a bit of a quiet assassin himself.
Yeah, lots of overtakes made sort of through other people's spins, but that's exactly how you race around here, especially if you're starting from 24th, which is what Alan Hales had to do here tonight. Just wait for everybody else to make those mistakes and fall off the road, and you can take advantage as Jeremy Maine and Mike Sachs go side by side. Maine again looking to make up these positions that he's lost earlier on in the day. Mike Sachs not letting him have 12th place for now.
Credit to Mike, doing a great defense here to keep Jeremy Maine behind. Should theoretically be a little bit quicker than him. And he's close coming up into Bianchi, but can't seem to do anything with it. Alan Hales, if he can time it right himself, he could take advantage of these two squabbling amongst each other. But he needs to be just a little bit closer.
Does. And maybe now is the chance. If he's got a good exit here, he could be a bit closer before the braking zone, but I don't think he's quite close enough. It's not very long braking zone. You're not coming from particularly high speed. It's very narrow, high-risk moves down here at turn 7, but not being made for the moment as Jeremy Maine just waits in behind Mike Sachs. And Alan Hales, again, just almost seems to be backing away as if to let this unfold, just standing back and waiting for the explosion. As he comes out into the hairpin, a bit of defence there from Sachs, certainly showing that Maine's getting in his head and getting in his mirrors.
There's something to be said about giving that little bit of a buffer zone to two drivers that are fighting hard, but I do think he needs to maybe close it up a bit, or else he couldn't take advantage of them racing side by side and try to stick his nose in. But we haven't seen Maine really make much of a move since last lap, and this time he's the one that makes the mistake coming out of Jackie Ick. So he drops a few tenths up to Mike Sachs as we just about hit the halfway mark here in a minute or so.
Yeah, not too far away. And by the way, Will Wolf is still there at the front of the race, still leading. His gap not as large as I expected, I must say, after 18 laps, which he's about to complete now. you'd say based on his qualifying pace and especially his practice pace, where he would have been doing some race runs as well, he would be, closer to 10 seconds in front of the rest. But this is a good fight from Joshua Jepson, even if it is in vain at the moment.
Now, here's what's wild. If they finish as they are, it's a 30-point difference. Guess how many points are between P1 and P2?
Well, I know. It's 30.
30 points, which means going into the final round, they would be tied. It would be whoever finishes ahead, which makes it nice and simple for us, but that has got to be stressful for the pair of them. William Wolf knows that he has got to take home this victory, and he'll hope that Jeppesen has a bad day to kind of help him put him ahead when they come into the final round, but he'll also probably be well aware of that points situation as he continues to rifle off the laps. Now, like as you said, 3 seconds ahead, so not massively huge. Tim Thornton with a bit of a problem coming off of Boulderberg and smacks the concrete wall for good measure. A bit of a shame. I have to say, this is one of the more clever paint schemes I've seen in some time, although sadly we can't see it too well in this darkness.
No, I was going to say, I can't really tell what's going on with that paint, but I can tell something's weird off with it. Just a spin on power this time round, stepping on it a little bit too much. What is that paint supposed to be? I can't see it anymore.
So it's a spoof on the Rexy paint schemes, but it's a shark instead. I think that's a fun little take on what has been an extremely popular paint scheme that we've seen a lot here on the iRacing sim over the past couple years.
That's very good. Yeah, I don't know what it is recently with animals being put on cars, but certainly it's been popular recently. And yeah, that is a good paint scheme. Even if I couldn't tell immediately what it is, there is a hard jump over the curves. Showing the danger of those at the climb chicane again. They are massive at turn 5, absolutely massive. You've got to work hard to avoid them, as we just saw there. The reasons why.
These cars can certainly bounce pretty hard, but you can't take too much. You will not gobble them up the way that you might want here, as this battle for 6th place is between Zaharicha, John Calvert in behind him, and then Nick Francis is close enough. You could consider it a trio in this battle for 6th place. All of them just about equidistant apart. Worth noting that this is, I believe, the first Twilight race of the season as well. So we had our first rain race last time out over in Spain, but here in Belgium we go into the darkness, and it'll be just about pitch black by the time we get to the checkers.
Yeah, it's an unusual time to start a race, actually. You don't often see this too much in road racing, especially at circuits that are not very well lit like this one, but it will be 5:30 in November in Europe, and that's very dark. Take it from me. So yeah, they will absolutely need the headlights by the end of this race. Even if it did start out sort of sunny-ish, it will get dark before the finish. And so yeah, tops off a couple of weeks of really difficult and unusual conditions, starting at Motorland Aragon, which took place a couple of weeks ago now for these guys, in some very changeable conditions. And some very difficult calls had to be made there 2 weeks ago.
Looks like things remaining tight here in this group, but we jump back to Ket Locklear, who's also been leading a number of cars. Jeff Gardner now behind him, Mike Sachs in there, and Jeremy Main. So the cast of characters has slightly changed up, but it is still 4 in a bit of a fight. Now, is Kent behind Corbett? Yes, he is. He's catching up to Corbett, who we know has gained a lot of positions. He's up 12 now. He's gained 1 more since we last looked at him. So things could certainly get fun if he manages to catch up to that 5:56, but we'll see. I don't know if the pace is better at this stage.
No, we'll have to see here. The race very mixed up right now because of sort of all the incidents that have happened. You've got a number of drivers out of position. I'd still describe Nick Francis a bit further up than this as out of position. You'd certainly describe Jeremy Main, who's in this group, as being a bit further down than he should be. Randy Lervold is still coming through from the field after his pit lane start. Effectively, by the way, you can say he's plus 10 because he started from 25th effectively with a pit lane start. We've also got those who've made early stops as well, who are likely to see the benefits of that later on if they've found some clear air. So this is a very mixed up field right now. And I'm a little bit surprised we're not seeing more stops, although I understand the reason, not least the low fuel stuff we always talk about, despite my complaints. And also here, more than elsewhere, is traffic. You don't want to end up behind somebody even slower than the group you're already in, with a heavier fuel load as well. That's just a triple negative. So I absolutely understand the reasons for running long here, but it's very unusual to see still the top 18, 19 still having to make their pit stop over halfway through.
Tim Thornton having another issue there on the replay. We'll get it turned around, it looks like. Okay, yeah, he found a nice big opening. I couldn't quite see if anybody was coming up behind him, but it looks like he had the clear. Kevin Haman is down into pit lane, and he was also gaining a lot of spots early on, but taking a bit of an early call is going to, like you said, put him in amongst it. In fact, I think any other driver that has stopped for fuel is a lap down already. I'm glad that you mentioned Lervold had that pit lane start. I had forgotten and seen the pit time next to his name and assumed that he was our highest driver to have pitted. But no, he remains in 14th, still owing us a pit stop, while Peter Yerxa is the latest driver also in.
Yeah, easy to forget that Lervold started from pit lane because, of course, it doesn't quite reflect that in the positions gained. But it is certainly the case as Jeremy Main gets very close behind Mike Sachs now towards the climb chicane. And he's a driver, to be honest, I'm surprised hasn't been making one of these early stops. I understand all the reasons that I just outlined a moment ago, but he's got nothing to lose anyway here. He's already outside the top 10 because of previous mistakes, and he's, I think, compounding it a little bit now by sitting behind drivers. He's definitely faster than. He could pit in and maybe find some clear air, and yes, he would go a lap down, but actually if you put in a group with the leaders, the four leaders who are only 17 seconds apart, then, you know, they're probably going to be quicker than you, to be honest. If anything, you'll be holding them up. So it's not no bad thing to run with them one lap down. It's not like you're going to get caught behind a safety car. So I don't see why not coming into the pit lane. Just have to be careful on the pit entry, of course, because otherwise you'll rear end the driver in front of you.
Exactly. And yeah, I'm in agreement with you. He's already being held up. If you get held up at another part of the track, well, then you didn't really lose anything. So it seems like it would make sense for him to maybe try to undercut those in front of him and see if it can make something different out of this situation as he gets dangerously close to the rear bumper of Mike Sachs down through turn 2.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure why Main is deciding to just stick in here and persevere with this, because it's getting very, very difficult indeed, as Kent Locklear has a go at Daniel Corbett there on the way towards the climb chicane as well. Jeffrey Connor's sort of stuck in the middle of these two pairs, but Locklear couldn't make that work anyway. He was just looking down the inside to sort of see what would happen, I think, on Daniel Corbett. Wasn't actually going to dive down the inside there at that very tight chicane.
And I guess that answers my question from earlier, that yes, indeed, Locklear is quicker than Corbett and has been gunning him down. Nick Francis just in front of them, well, not just in front of him, 17 seconds in front of him, rather, is still fighting with John Kalbick and Zaharachuk. We were watching this three-way fight a little bit earlier on in the race. It has not changed positions at this stage, which does seem to be becoming a bit of a theme out here. If you are behind a couple other cars that are slower than you, it seems like you might wind up in that position for quite some time today. Yeah,
it is certainly going that way. And, you know, at the moment, these guys, because, you know, we're in the stage of the race now where they could definitely pit and make it to the end. You've got to say that it's no longer sort of bad fortune that they found themselves in this group. This is almost a choice to stay up here and run with lower fuel up front with these guys. And again, you can understand it, especially from Nick Francis' point of view, to be fair, because he has a lot more to lose here in terms of getting stuck behind people. But this is certainly a choice now from the likes of Nick Francis to do this. Maybe he's going to put the trust in his own skills in the last 23 minutes and decide, well, that's actually quite a long time for me to make only 2 overtakes. I'm not realistically going to get to 4th unless there's a crash in front, because there's 25 seconds between Zaharachuk and Andrew Long. But he could very much get to a top 5 position here. And actually, doing the calculations, 23 minutes, 2 overtakes for him, that's not a bad deal.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if he feels like he can, then yeah, might as well try and stick it out. Or alternately, just do it one lap earlier than those if you can maybe time it right. If you assume they're running similar fuel consumption to you. So down into turn one once again. The head of this group, Zaharachuk, just plugging away up into that 630 car. Like you said, a long ways away from the other top four ahead of him. So he's got basically more to lose than to gain. I think Mike Sachs, yes, Mike Sachs has taken our advice. It was not Jeremy Main that decided to come in, while Ron Evans, well, thankfully, when he bounces back onto the track, did not have a car coming immediately and is able to pull out of the way.
It's hard contact through that chicane there as he spun into the wall. And unfortunately, then we'll have to drop back to pit lane. But yeah, interesting from Mike Sachs, actually, because he was, well, I guess he felt like he was stuck in that group as well. To be fair, he did have Corbett, Locklear and Gardner right in front of him, so maybe he felt stuck as well, and he felt that pressure was being invited onto him with Jeremy Main so close in behind him. 18 seconds in the pit lane, though, suggests there is maybe something else going on there.
Yeah, I was just noticing not only did Mike have a long stop there, but Kevin Haman had 19 seconds in his pit stop, something that we didn't note when he came in about 3 or 4 laps ago. So, and I'm seeing Torres-Gianni with a 20-second stop. Surely drivers aren't trying to take tires here, because that's too short for tires.
Yeah, you could get about 3 done in that time, but that would be ludicrous. Somebody took 3 tires, not 4 or whatever. So yeah, that's a bit of a puzzler, I must say, for him to be taking that amount of time in pit lane.
Oh, sorry, that's Jeremy Main managing to get by Gardner, so that freed him up. Even if it wasn't him taking the pit stop, looks like he had a much easier time getting by Gardner than he did Sachs.
Well, yes, very easy if you compare it to Mike Sachs. He gets down the inside at the final corner and gets it done, Jeremy Main. I mean, that's the sort of opening he was waiting for, though. He took it about it time and time again in these groups. All you're waiting for is just one little bit of interruption, whatever it ends up being, and suddenly you find an opening and you're on your way through. So yeah, Jeremy Main into 10th position. Now he's got to really drive this home. He's got to push on from those guys behind. He's got to get away from Sachs. Of course, he won't know probably that he's had a long stop there, so he's got to get away from him. He's got to go away from Gardner and Hales as well, who will now fight for 11th.
He still has Kent Locklear in front of him, and you can see in the purple 088 machine. And then, of course, actually, no, they've dropped back from Corbett, and I'm not sure why. It's 3 seconds. So that's a big drop away, unless everybody had some sort of run off the track or a slowdown penalty of some sort here. But a drastic change in a short amount of time. Speaking of a short amount of time, as we watch Corbett here, or excuse me, no, this is Gardner actually that we're watching. Jeremy Main is caught up to Kent Locklear extremely quick.
Yeah, and that's a sign of a very, very quick driver who's stuck in behind some drivers he's much quicker than at this time in the race. And now he's going to pit. So slightly puzzling that he's waited all this time to make a move and then come in. But anyway, he was probably out of fuel by now, and so has to make that stop. John Cowbeck also into the pit lane now. So these guys must be running out of fuel very soon.
Certainly a lot of heavy braking zones around this track, so no doubt they're probably using up a bit of that fuel as John Cowbeck is going to return to the circuit. So he was, I believe, in the middle of that group, wasn't he? Yes. So Nick Francis behind him, and then Zaharachuk in front of him. So where will they wind up in comparison while we wait for Main, who has hit his spot? Now we're looking at about 12 seconds. He's up to 9, 10, 11. Is he also going to go long? Yes, he's going long. Not by much, though.
No, not entirely, but if you feel it can help you running that longer on less fuel, and you've maybe got a bit of clear air in front of you, then it's probably worth doing at this stage. We'll see what everybody else decides to do here, because there's still some pretty large groups out there, and still 12 drivers who are yet to make a stop. Obviously -1 now, because Andrew Long is in from the first one of the top 4 actually who's in here.
Oh, is just to the side of the screen. That was Francis and Zaharachuk, and Nick manages to get by down into turn one. Sheldon's going to try and come back around the other side and opens up the corner. That could give him a chance, but it does not. Nice move by the 55. By the way, Maine was 3 seconds shorter in his pit stall comparison to Sachs, and came out just about exactly that, about 4 seconds ahead of him.
So the pit stop's checking out at the moment, although Mike Sachs being so long in the box. Only Kevin Hamann so far has been longer inside the top 19. That's probably going to he's going to end up paying for that with some positions as Locklear, Hales and Thornton are in from the battles behind. Will Wolf has followed them in as he was just coming up to lap them, so he's probably seen traffic of a different kind and thought, I better come in now as well.
And that seems like it may have been a bit of a good call, because there was some lap traffic that stayed out. Well, sort of lap traffic. It's a driver that's already pitted, Kevin Hamann, and had to be overtaken by Josh Jeppesen. So that will slow him up slightly. But I think the gap was still somewhere around 4 to 5 seconds. So it'll take something dramatic for them to swap positions at this stage. As we've seen, there are some mysteriously long pit stops. And as we see our leader exit, his was, again, somewhere in the halfway mark, about 15 seconds.
Yeah, so a few seconds longer than the likes of Andrew Long and also John Cowbeck. So if Jeppesen can get that stop time down to about 10 or, 10 would be quite short, but 11 or 12 maybe, then we might have a race on here, because he's kept that gap very, very close. He's battled well in this race to keep the race leader very, very close. So Will Wolf has not got this race win done by any means just yet. Let's see if Jeppesen responds immediately, or whether he carries on low fuel. Well, he might not have been able to, we'll never know, but he's in now.
We've had a couple drivers that have fallen victim to that narrow pit exit. There is a line that you have to stay to the right of. Alan Hales and Kent Locklear given a drive-through penalty for going over that pit exit line. Which is a bit of a shame with the way that Kent Locklear was having such a good race. Jeff Gardner is now in, and as we wait for Jeppesen, William Wolf is currently actually just coming through Jalkenrint down towards Ix.
So this is the big stop. Jeppesen has got to, I would say, have this stop about 11 seconds or shorter. Now, obviously, he doesn't need to underfuel himself so that he runs out before the end, but if he can get this stop time down, he could be right in the game here. It's shorter, definitely shorter, but it's only 12 and a half. Wolf should still get the lead.
Yep, he goes by. You could just see it at the side of the screen. There he is now. Jeppesen returns. Oh, but it is pretty darn close. And unfortunately, he will be out in traffic. Torrigiani is going to split he and William Wolf. It's about a second and a half. That is much closer than it was before the stops.
Absolutely, and it's all down to that pit stop time. 2.8 seconds exactly gained by Jeppesen. Casey McDonald was quicker in the box. So was Andrew Long earlier. John Cowbeck was. Everybody, in fact, until you get back to Kevin Hamann in 9th place, was quicker than Will Wolf. I don't know whether he put some insurance fuel in there just to be sure, but if that is the case, he nearly massively miscalculated that.
Now down to the last little bit here. Wolf might have a bit of a fight on his hands. And speaking of a fight, I just saw Cowbeck get out in front of Francis by half a second. That was tight there as we see them on screen. That's for a 5th place.
Yeah, Francis will still fancy himself, though, with the amount of time remaining, because he qualified better than Cowbeck, and although Cowbeck's raced better, and he's gone from 10th to 5th so far in this race, Francis will definitely fancy himself to make this pass in the last 13 minutes. The final pit stops are now completing themselves. Ankerbergson is going to drop a bit further down the field. Some of these groups have broken up a little bit, but there are still plenty of things to be settled before the finish.
With the trips through pit lane over, let's mention another type of trip. Princess Cruises. They're the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 2188. Okay, if anybody's going to make passes, they're going to have to do it on track from here. They're also going to have to field their way through it in the dark.
Yeah, it's getting properly dark out there now as Alan Hales indeed has his trouble. Well, that's one way of getting yourself turned back round, I suppose, but it's going to damage your front end as well through the turn 7 chicane. So here's Jeffrey Gardner and Jeremy Main. Main hasn't gained that many places through the pit stops, but you're generally not expecting to. You just try not to lose them. Gardner's stop was only 11.4 seconds, by the way. That's shortest other than Lee Binkley. So second shortest in the entire field. Makes you wonder if Jefferson could have achieved that, and maybe he would have been side by side for the lead as he came out the pit lane there.
Exactly, and as they weave their way through Erst, using up all of the track there. Jeremy Main, to his credit, he is only down 3 from where he started this race, so he has recovered decently well. Isn't back up to where he started, obviously, but has made some inroads on it in what is a very closely competitive field out there. Lervold, our pit lane starter, has already taken his pit stop. He's still sitting in 14th. So, again, fantastic job. And maybe wound up being the right call, I suppose, not starting in the group. As we switch angles, I can tell you that Jeremy Main just got a good run and might be able to get by Gardner here. As we take a look back at that, there he is. He is through.
Yeah.
Oh, not for long.
Oh, no. Off through the gravel, and that is going to be, well, he's going to, oh, dear. He's going to have to give up the place. He very nearly did it accidentally by spinning on the gravel there. Partly the ones he brought onto the circuit and also the stones that were already there. That was exceptionally close to Jeremy Main losing it. Good reactions, though, to keep it on the straight and narrow. But he knows he can do it now. He knows he can do it. He's just got to pull it up in time and consolidate that move in the next 10 minutes now.
Exactly. I think that was facilitated by a little bit of a mistake from Gardner coming through the Kleine chicane. So just has to regain a little bit of that lost time. You can see them weaving down the main straight, trying to avoid giving Jeremy Main any sort of slipstream here. Jeff Gardner would like to hold on to that top 10.
He's at the stage in the race now, the amount of time left in the race, that means he will be able to hang on as well, or he can at least realistically see himself being able to hang on for the remainder of this race. We'll see whether he actually does here, as Main gets a very good exit off of 2. He's at 3, sorry, he's clearly the quicker driver, but the challenge around here is making the passes. It's not impossible around here. It's what makes this circuit so brilliant to watch racing at. Not impossible, but not easy either, and that's what Main is experiencing at the moment.
Certainly is figuring out how to get this done after he spent so long behind Sachs. Maybe he's finally kind of cracked the code. Now, less than 10 minutes left to go on this one. I also want to point out, in case anybody hasn't looked at the top, yeah, here we go, as if on cue, over to William Wolf. It's up to 5.5 seconds now. So William may have lost time in the pit stops, but I almost wonder if that was maybe a bit of a safety measure in a way, just making sure he's well good on fuel, and then he could push as hard as he needs at the end, and he has just been strengthening and lengthening that lead.
Yeah, he has. Oh dear, Hales again through the Kleine chicane, spinning around. I think that's separate to the one we've seen a moment ago, so yeah, he's had another in the last few moments. As we go back on board with Main, this has been very entertaining to watch Jeremy Main so far in this race. And has he now just pulled Gardner into going too deep? Gardner actually pulls it back to the apex in time. Oh, there's nearly contact here as well. Main cannot dive at turn 3 surely, and he won't. This is a very exciting battle between these two. Main giving it a right go, but still can't do it yet.
Interesting one. We saw the black flag for Kent Locklear. That was for blocking. And in this series, blocking is defined as a reactionary move to those behind you trying to attack. You can defend with a preemptive move, but you cannot change lanes once the driver behind you has shown which way they want to go. Meanwhile, Jeremy Main continuing to hound Jeff Gardner, now has some traffic in front of him. This could be the ticket that the 555's been waiting for.
Down the inside at the hairpin maybe, is too far back this time round, but if he can just use this little bit of traffic, that might help. Oh, off wide as well. And that allows Main to take a nicer line. He was willing to get closer to the lap car there. Gardner gave him quite a wide berth, but Main didn't quite get the exit required. His line was much better, but his exit speed wasn't quite good enough, and he can't take advantage of that lap traffic, not this time.
Let's see if they've got any more lap traffic in front of them. Looks like, no, they do not. Daniel Corbett is the next car up the road. Certainly not going to have time to catch the next car up. So it is down to Jeremy to do it on his own, and he might here because he's got a very good exit out of Erst, but it's not a very long straightaway again. He sticks his nose in, makes a little bit of contact, but it's upsets Jeremy Main instead of Jeff Gardner. So thankfully that won't get him a penalty, but it will cost him some time.
And is that going to now put it out of the question that he can make this move? I would say no, because he's got such speed that he'll be there, I think, by the end of this lap almost. But that time is definitely running out. By the time they get to the end of this next lap, the time remaining in the race could be as little as just 5 minutes. As far as that translates to laps, we'll have to see. But Jeppesen and Wolf are not that far behind these guys. As we have a look at Casey McDonald here, who won't be joining those top two. He's off into the gravel, still in third though.
Thankfully, he had built such a huge margin. Man, that must have been a massive margin because it's still about 6 seconds between himself and Andrew Long. So Casey definitely had a big oops, but thankfully did not pay for it, at least in terms of track position. Kalbick with Francis behind him and just about reversed everybody. It looks like they jumbled them all up into different orders. Herichuk lost 2 positions in that pit stop sequence. He had the worst of it.
Yeah, certainly did. As the lights expires completely now, John Kalbeck is still not quite secure from Nick Francis, who is challenging his 5th position. Zoltan Zaharchuk, though, is absolutely out of this now. He was holding 5th for quite a while, but he's absolutely out of this now through the pit stop phase. And you can't even really tell through the pit stop times that would become the case. Francis has probably cost himself a chance at a top 5 here because his stop was 2 seconds longer than Kalbeck's. If it was in line with the driver in front of him, then maybe there would be a different finishing position for Francis, but looks like he might miss out on this top 5 after all.
I don't think this is over quite yet. Still about half a second behind. And if Kalbick makes any mistakes, Nick is there to try to pick up the pieces. But it's going to have to be very precise. He's going to have to definitely be on his toes if he wants to try and overtake him here at the end, especially with the visibility so low at this stage. Sometimes it can be harder to tell what exactly the body language of that car ahead is doing as you start to approach. Jeppesen has caught up to Wolf, so there must have been a lap where Wolf had an issue or caught up some traffic. It's down to about 2 seconds between P1 and P2.
Yeah, it's unusual, isn't it, the way these gaps are booked? I mean, look at that. We've seen these two together a lot this season. We've seen that comparison between the two quite a lot this season. When have we seen such inconsistency from the both of them? Wolf in 3 different seconds for 3 laps in a row. See where he is this time around. It's a little bit better, 32.0. That's where he'd like to stay from here and into else. But Jeppesen, when he's on that full speed, just can't stay with Wolf. And that's what's seen Wolf, it should be, to a victory here tonight, unless there's any nasty surprises around the corner for him.
Well, there is some lap traffic around the corner, unfortunately for him. In fact, it's a battle with multiple cars. Binkley, Sachs, Main, Gardner, 4 drivers, all 4 position in front of him. Now, we only have, about 2 more laps, so he may not get to them in time, but he's going to hope that they do not start fighting in front of him because that really could help hold him up.
Yeah, exactly. So you can never say that these races are quite done because of that, especially here at Zolder, and especially because of the amount of traffic that within the next 10 seconds Will Wolf has got to. He could be inside the top 10 as far as putting a lap on people by the end of this race. I'm not sure he's quite going to have the time to do that because there are only 2 laps to go in this race.
We're watching Jeppesen, but I can tell you that Wolf is flashing his headlights at that group in front of them. And they do have new rules since last season that do require drivers to get out of the way once you get within a certain range of that driver ahead. That is, once the gap is less than 1 second, the car receiving the blue flag must let the other car by within 3 corners. So that helps them out some, but it still is not a guarantee. Down to, that time by should be 2 laps to go for Wolff.
Yeah, it should be. As we see Nick Francis here, still trying to get on terms with John Carbeck. Seems that these two are relatively well matched in their battle now. And Francis is just going to run out of time to get past the 84 car up ahead, so it's going to be a 6th place finish in the end for Francis by the looks of things here. Again, a long way off of the leaders, such as the pace of Jeppesen and Wolff, who have not really been on our screens very much tonight. They've not really been in any action tonight. Wolff is probably in the most action now. He's been all race long getting through on some of these lap cars that are now Jeppesen's obstacle to deal with. But it's worth reminding everyone again that these two, as it stands, will be tied on points going into the last race of the season. Will Wolff with 4 wins to Jeppesen's 1, but much more consistency from Joshua Jeppesen. Still only having finished off the podium once this season. That has given us a mouth-watering finale in 3 weeks' time.
Cannot wait for that one. And Jeppesen actually seems to be having a lot more trouble getting close and lapping these battles that Wolff has managed to get by. It's up to now 3.5 seconds between them. So it is working in the favor of the 16 at this stage as he takes the white flag for the 1 to go.
He's just got to bring it home now, especially with that gap almost doubling here to Jeppesen. He's just got to bring it home, Wolff. As you can see, the darkness has properly taken a hold on this circuit. No lights around here either, not even on the pit straight. You've just got to pick your way around. And again, as I mentioned at the start of the day, it's a race that's very much been decided by those who have been practiced for this race, because this is not a track or indeed conditions that you can jump straight into and be quick around.
The cars looking like they might be battling in front. Indeed they are. That was Main getting by Gardner. Great work by him. And I'm not sure that it's over yet because Gardner fights back. He gets pinched over to the right-hand side with just enough room. He'll have the inside coming down into the Villeneuve chicane, and that's going to force Main to have to go off. But what's this going to do for William Wolff as he approaches? He tries to play patient and safe.
Well, he'll be glad that the gap doubled to Jeppesen in the last bit of traffic, because he's used 1 second of that gap already here. He looks at the inside of Gardner, who won't want to be lapped, don't forget, because that would end his race, whereas Main would be allowed to carry on and do another lap. And so Wolff has let them be. Given that he's got that extra gap, he's let them be. He'll let them fight for 10th on the last lap.
I'm curious if Main has served his penalty, though, because he clearly cut the course and he hasn't given the position back yet. But regardless, William Wolff will return to the top step for the 2nd race in a row and tie the championship as Jeppesen finishes in P2 behind him. Celebrations off into the gravel. Wolff is ecstatic.
And why not as well? He's given himself a great chance at winning this title in the final race of the season in 3 weeks' time, coming at VIR. If he's feeling comfortable around there and he's got 3 weeks to make sure he is doing, then he'll be favourite, I think, for the title, given he's won 4 out of the 6 races so far this season.
We've got a bit of a bizarre situation going on where I heard Jeremy Main, and I swear he said, I'm going to give the position back to Jeff Gardner. And I saw him slow, but now Gardner slowed and allowed him through. So maybe he felt like it was legitimate, but it might not be legitimate now, as we can see him once again struggle with the cut course.
Yeah, I think Gardner was right, by the way, in that. Well, not that he should have slowed down to let Main carry on there, but I think Gardner was almost sort of positioning his car in a way that almost forced Main to cut the corner anyway, even though Main, I think, cut the corner because he didn't brake early enough, much like the incident we saw earlier on between these two. A slightly bizarre battle in some ways, but a very entertaining one. This is one of the harder top 10s that Jeremy Main will ever have to fight for. Still -2 in his positions on the day, but he finishes in the top 10, as he has done Every race that he started this season, he's kept that record alive, but only just.
Interesting stuff there for Jeremy Main. And yeah, a bit of no after you here with some gentlemanly racing, which sees William Wolf take the win up at the top. Josh Jeppesen, got to give him credit. He made a race out of it and forced Wolf to have to push, as Casey McDonald was P3, and then you've got Andrew Long in 4th. Nick Francis will be P5, followed by John Kalbick in 6th, Sheldon Zaharchuk 7th, and Kevin Haman in 8th. Daniel Corbett will be P9 with an incredible rise up 12 positions, while Jeremy Main gets another top 10 for himself. Jeff Gardner will be the last one on the lead lap in 11th. Lee Binkley was 12th, with Mike Sachs finishing 13th. Randy Lervold starting from pit lane, still managing to finish 14th. Great job from him. Tim Thornton, P15. Ankerberg's on 16th, and Patrizio Torrigiani was 17th. From there, Brian Stern was 18th after he was in a bit of a knockabout race, while Kent Locklear, after his penalty, gets sent to 19th, and Bruce Robinson was in 20th. From there, it's everybody 2 laps down or more. Andrew Elsom with a miserable race. Alan Hales as well, multiple issues, 22nd. Ron Evans, we saw him have problems there in 23rd, while Peter Yerxa and Jeff Williams were only DNFs on the day. So, William Wolf once again gets himself up to the top step. It takes another victory to tie things up at the front coming into the last round. Will, this has got, it looked like this one meant a lot with what we saw of the celebrations there at the finish.
Yeah, I needed a good finish here, so I was happy we could just sort of execute on the plan.
Well, it looked like the plan got a little complicated at the end. You had a slightly longer stop that put Jeppesen much closer to you. Were you playing the fuel safe, or what caused it to be so much longer than your rival?
Yeah, I gotta look into that. I don't know why my pit stop was 3 seconds longer than Josh, but we'll figure that out for the next race.
And then on top of that, you had the traffic to deal with. Were you getting nervous coming upon 4 cars all fighting for position with a couple laps left?
Yeah, that was the big challenge this race. There was just a lot of traffic everywhere. Even an incident like lap 5 with the lapped cars. So that was really pretty tricky.
Well, I guess the one thing you have going for you is it's extremely straightforward coming into the last race when we head off to VIR. It's whoever finishes ahead. Best of luck and congratulations on the victory.
Thank you. And thanks to our sponsors and last 10th.
That was Will Wolf, your winner here today. I believe in the meantime, Ewan has caught up with Josh Jeppesen, who came home second behind him.
Yes, second place tonight for Josh Jeppesen. Josh, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Congrats on yet another podium for you this season. Only missed out on that once in 6 races now. How do you feel at the end of tonight? It was a battle between yourself and Will all the way, and the two of you didn't really change positions at any stage tonight. So how do you assess that?
I don't know. I kind of just got stuck in lap traffic. A couple times there I got pretty close, but I guess I was trying to just drive clean and maintain a 0x throughout the race, and I guess that's what I was going for, and I did it. So I don't know, but it kind of looks like we're the 3 musketeers here. So
it's a straight shootout between the two of you, I guess, as it has been all season long, but now it's official that you two are tied on points going into the last race of the season at VIR. How do you go around there as a circuit, and how confident are you that you can beat Will in a straight fight for the title, which is what it's going to be?
I don't know. It's if one of us makes a mistake, I guess that's what it's going to lead up to, and that'll be the way it will be.
Well, good luck to you in the final race, of course. We look forward to seeing you there, but for now, thanks for chatting to us, and congrats again on a second place finish tonight.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks PCA and the steering committee, and my wife, Bryce Rodriguez. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks very much, Josh Jeppesen. Second place tonight, chatting to us after finishing second place at Zolder and setting up that straight shootout between the two of them in 3 weeks.
And behind them, it was quiet at times for Casey McDonald, who came home in third, but it wasn't completely clean. Casey, we saw at one point you had a bit of an off at the hairpin. What happened there?
Slower traffic was letting me by right at my brake point, and I lost it. And I just like, well, I'm just going to try this off and try to get back on, and hopefully I don't lose my position. It worked out, thank goodness.
That's exactly what happened. You wound up staying in third. How much of a gap had you managed to pull? Because I was a bit shocked that we saw that off in a replay, and I looked over. You were still 6 seconds ahead of the next car.
I think the last time I looked, which might have been a lap before, I was 12 up. So I was like, I think I can do this, but I didn't know how much I was going to have. And then I came back on. I was 6 ahead, and then it started growing again. So I got lucky.
That does make sense. If it was just a simple off without a spin, about 6 seconds sounds right. Another podium here for you. You were a bit far back coming into this one, but it seems like, as we came in with a lot of drivers still mathematically in contention, as you see those two who finished in front of you, how closely matched they are on pace. How do you feel about your chances? Could you do something miraculous when we go to Virginia?
Well, you never know what happens with other racers on the track, and that's all that's going to help me out, is because those guys are faster. They're in another league, obviously. But, you never know. You just got to race and do your best.
That's a good way to approach it. Again, congratulations on a podium. Go celebrate and enjoy the night.
Thanks a lot. You have a good Thanksgiving.
You as well. That was Casey McDonald.
Oh, and hey, can I say one more thing real quick?
Sure,
I'm sorry.
sure.
I just wanted to say thanks to Nikki at Last Tenth for the coaching, and PCA and Princess Cruise for sponsoring this. It's great.
Great words from Casey McDonald there, finishing in third, which is going to wrap us up. And as we said, the finale will take place down at Virginia International Raceway. That'll be on December 10th at 9 p.m. Eastern. For the last one in the sport class. A big thank you goes, of course, to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as to our team tonight, Ramiro and Ewan. Make sure to join us tomorrow night, because we have the last one here at Zolder on November 20th for the challenge class. In the meantime, thank you for watching. I'm Joe Peak, and until next time, race clean, race hard, and see you on the track.